Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. Let me straighten my camera over here for the YouTube people. Good to see you. Did you notice? Yeah, I'm wearing a sweater. You want to know why? Because it finally decided to turn fall here in Northeast Arkansas. Had the heater going, though, and it's a little stuffy in here at the moment, so I may shed this thing. Did you also notice I got my ears lowered? Yes, I did. Right out there, out back of the house. Cindy went out there and she's my barber, my beautician, my hairdresser, my personal person to take and cut my hair. Has been doing it for years. I love that woman. I'm going to go ahead and take this thing off because I want you to see my shirt. It's one of my favorite shirts. I love wearing the shirt. I get more comments about this shirt than any shirt that I got. I love this shirt because Jesus is my superhero. You know what I'm saying? Anyhow, we are in Basic Bible, a homeschooling Bible course, and that's me right there, the goofy one. And I'm glad to have you with me. Thank you so very much. Oh my. Segment 1. You can't hardly see me because of my silly doodle. I'm going to take doodle down. Doodle down. Okay. There I am, and I'm saying do the doodle, which means we need to do the doodle. But let's do it. Boot, blob, banana boat with bubbles being bounced beside balloons. Can you say it? Are you getting sick and tired of saying it? Well, by the time we end this whole thing, you're going to really get sick and tired. But if you get that in your head, it's going to help you so very, very much. Next time, I'm hoping to actually deal with this section of geography. Not next time as in this particular series, but in the next series that I do. And we're going to have to go there, and we'll have to maybe even have another silly something to remember it by. But right now, it's boot, blah, banana boat with bubbles being bounced beside balloons. Okay, so let's just go ahead and put them up there. There's your boot. And there's your blob. Notice the banana. There's a boat. And we're going to add a bubble today because that's what we dealt with last time. You remember? Last time we dealt with Cyprus, okay? And I put the circle here around the next island that we're going to deal with. Anybody want to guess? Crete. Yeah. If you put a con in front of that, it sounds like concrete. But it's not concrete, it's Crete. That's the name of the island right there. And anyhow, you're going to get to see that. I'm eventually going to take the boat away, and you'll actually get to see it. Oh, yeah. Here's our silly little jingle. The bubbles are some islands. There's Cyprus, and there's Crete. The Isle of Malta also, where Paul and Snake did meet. Now you're saying, Sonny, you used that last time. I know. It's the only line from the poem that I have all three of the bubbles actually mentioned. And so you're going to hear it next time too. And so I'm sorry. But, you know, I'm not that brilliant to be able to write more lines than that. So there you go. So we got Cyprus, Crete, and we're going to deal with Malta next time, okay? But Crete is what we got circled here. It's behind the boat. You'll see it here in just a moment. So can you say the jingle? Well, I know you can because we done did it. But you know what we need to do next? We need to do it. You know, we need to actually do the doodle. But here I want to show you, I've got it circled here. Okay, that's where Crete is. Last time we dealt with Cyprus. But I also want to show you where in the Bible it's mentioned. And it's mentioned several times, actually. But in Titus 1:5, this is why I left you in Crete, Paul says to Titus, so that you might put what remained in order and appoint elders in every town as I directed you. And so that was the assignment of Titus when he went to Crete, assigned by Paul, go there and appoint elders. So there you have Crete being actually mentioned in the Bible. Now, get out your doodle-dater. Doodle-dater? What's a doodle-dater? Okay, I've lost my, there it is, lost my expensive eraser. We take off this guy, and we find us a doodleationer, and it's time to do it. Now, remember, we got to do her small. I've got to remind myself that, all right? So you got your boot, right? Then you got your blob, which a Grecian snowman is, I just think that, okay. So boot, blob, banana. See, I'm still too big. And we got our boat right now. What we're going to do is we put that, remember we put that bubble up here because that's Cyprus, okay? And then we're going to have, watch it, see Crete? Crete is kind of halfway in between the blob and the beginning of the banana. That's kind of hard to say, the beginning of the banana, a lot of B's in there. So what you do, you see, you find your blob and find the beginning of the banana and you put your Crete. Not concrete, just Crete. Okay, so there you have it. All right, so you got your boot, your blob, your banana, your boat, bubbles. We're going to get another bubble here in a little while, but not today. And so you got Cyprus and you got Crete. You got that? All right, very good. Very, very good. Let's see what else we got to do today. Oh yeah, we got to remember our thingamajiggy with regards to the Luke chapter 10. We're in Luke. We're remembering the chapter titles, or chapters, not titles. What do you call them? Themes. Let's go with that. Themes, subjects. And one of the major subjects in Luke chapter 10 is the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, there's a lot of other stuff that happens in Luke 10, so I would encourage you parents to have them read the whole chapter. It's a really good chapter. But in Luke chapter 10, it's the parable of the Good Samaritan. But right now we're doing the doodle part. I'll talk to you more about that later on. But right now we're doing the doodle, and I want you to, can you see the 10? Does anybody see a 10 in the picture? This is one of my favorite memory clues. I actually drew this one. Most of them are drawn by Gabriel, but I drew this one. This is the wounded dude in the Good Samaritan story. Can you see the 10? Yeah. The Band-Aid's the 1, and the black eye is the 0. Isn't that brilliant? I don't know if it's brilliant. It's certainly not a Michelangelo moment, but I think it's kind of cool how you can, anyhow, there you go. That's the way you should remember Luke chapter 10. You got the Band-Aid and the black eye, and that reminds you the parable of the Good Samaritan. Okay. Now, let's see. Oh, yeah, we got to doodle that. So I get back to my fancy dancy eraser thing. All right, now we got to doodle that one. And I'm not as strong as I once was. Actually, I never was strong. But anyhow, let's. So what are we going to do? Well, let's just go ahead and draw us a head here, and we'll just, the nose, triangle nose. It's a pretty simple nose. And then you got your eyeball over here, and now this eyeball over here is going to be a little bit different. We'll see it here in just a moment. Get us a pupil in the middle of your eyeball. Okay. Now the reason I left this blank over here, of course, as you can see, is we're going to draw us a Band-Aid. Because he's been wounded, right? Oh yeah, he's not really happy. So we're gonna put, now you can put all kinds of Band-Aids and stuff up here on his head, and stuff to make him look like he's, anyhow. You see the Band-Aids happening there? Okay, but the big one is this. Of course, you've got to color in around his eye here because he's got a black eye from getting beat up, right? And so what do you got? You got that, only a less cool version of it down here. So you doodled Luke chapter 10. Way to go. I'm so proud of you. If I set that right there, would you see it? Yeah, you would. So I'll set it over there. All right, here we go. Moving on. So if I was going to test you over the first segment of today, I would ask these questions. What's the phrase? Boop, blah, blah, you know that. And what part of the Bible lands map do we emphasize today? The second bubble. Remember? Second bubble. First one was Cyprus. Today is Crete. Very good. And then, can you draw the chapter memory clue? Which I think you can do because you done did it. So let's move into segment number 2, which means we got to have a moment of silliness. There was a missionary, and he asked everybody in the audience, he says, who all wants to go to heaven? Everybody raised their hand except for little Johnny. Kind of concerned the missionary. So he walked over to little Johnny. He said, son, don't you want to go to heaven when you die? Little Johnny responded, why, sure. But I thought you were getting up a group to go right now. Johnny wasn't really sure whether he wanted to respond yes to that, because maybe the preacher is going to take him out right now. I don't know. Isn't that cute, little Johnny, too? Anyhow, okay. Segment 2. See my head? Did you notice I started having my head pop up there? So it's like I'm down here and I pop. Anyhow, make a memory. That's what we're going to do now, is we're fixing to make a memory. So put your head in gear, because we got a lot to review. Here's a bunch of stuff, and it's going to fill up the whole thing. We're going to have to start a new thing today because we got so many things. What's Luke chapter 1? The message of Gabriel that Jesus is going to be born. Luke chapter 2, Jesus gets born, right? And his childhood, don't forget that. Family tree of Jesus, right? 40 days, temptation in the wilderness. Very good. S, or 5, students. What's another word for student in the Bible? Disciple. Very good. And then 2 times 6 gets 12. There's 12 of something in the Bible. Apostles. Very good. Luke chapter 7, John the Baptist is going to send some of his folks and ask Jesus, are you really the Christ? And Jesus is going to say, look around you, see what you see, what you hear about all the miracles. I am. And then in Luke chapter 8, we're going to talk about the storm on the Sea of Galilee. It's one of my favorite clues. I love that little tornado out there. I don't know whether it was a tornado or not, but it's pretty windy, pretty stormy. And then Luke chapter 9, which we covered last time as well, is the Transfiguration. Remember, that's when Jesus was praying, his face is changed, his clothes is changed, and two guys show up with him on the mountain. Remember who those two guys are? Moses and Elijah. Very good. And then in Luke chapter 10, which is today, we have got the Good Samaritan. Now, I want to remind you, if you will send me in your doodle, I might very well send you back a sticker that looks a lot like this. Well, it looks just exactly like this. It's not quite that big, though. But it's a sticker. Gabriel designed it. I thought he really did a good job. And so I'll send you a sticker. And so send me your doodle. If you're going to make a memory from Luke chapter 10, it might be important for you to know what's happening in Luke chapter 10. So here's your memory. Get it? Memory or make a memory. This is segment 2. Memory verse. Yeah. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, that means he traveled. As a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. And so the story, as you might recall, we'll see it in the text here later on, but the story is the Good Samaritan stopping and helping the guy who got beat up and robbed. Okay, so that's your memory verse. And again, say each of those phrases 10 times, mamas and daddies. I think by this point you get the whole drill. But now you erase some of the key words. Okay, but a Samaritan. Okay, you get so fill in the key words there, and you'll have it in your brain. All right. So in making a memory, then this will be our memory verse, along with all of those things that are reminding us of what each chapter represents. Right. Okay. So if I was going to test you, then I would say, what's the major What's the major topic of this particular chapter? And you would say, well, it's the telling of the Good Samaritan. And then I'd ask you, could you quote the memory verse? And you'd say, why, surely I can, because I said it 5 times. And then I had my mom and dad erase keywords, and I filled them in, and I'm like crazy cool. And so, yes, I can do that. Well, time for segment number 3. Hop out of the way, Sonny Childs. What would a bumper sticker say on the back of Methuselah's car? You remember who Methuselah is? He's the oldest man to live, according to the biblical record. The oldest guy, the man who lived the longest, 900 and something years. Oldest man to ever live. So if he had a car and on the back of his car there was a bumper sticker, what would that bumper sticker say? Well, it would certainly say, be kind to senior citizens. Because he's the seniorest of all the senior citizens. You know what I mean? Now, I don't want anybody to get out the tissue here. I don't want anybody to get, teary-eyed or anything, but this is the last of the bumper sticker jokes. I ran out with Methuselah. And so unless you want to send me in one, I'm out. So next week, we're going to have to go to something else. I got plenty of silliness, so don't fear. We can take care of silly. All right. Segment number 3. See me come up there? I think that's really cool how I just kind of, I don't know that you like it at all, but I do. Now we're going to ponder the passage. This is where we actually get into the text and we look at the text. Now I'm going to have to do a little map work with you here in order for you to appreciate the text. But let's just jump to it real quickly. You can see the text is a little bit smaller than normal because there's a lot there. But we're not going to spend a lot of time with it. This is just intended to be kind of a survey over the topic of the chapter. But he desired to justify himself. He said to Jesus, who is my neighbor? Now, Jesus is kind of in a little bit of a give and take and debate kind of a thing with this guy. And the guy's not happy that Jesus is giving him the answer that he didn't want to hear. And so he's kind of trying to make up for it. He said, well, who is my neighbor? And so Jesus said, I'll tell you a story. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, come over here to my little map here, and you're going to notice I got dots here, okay? Here's the Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea. That's the Mediterranean. That's the edge of the boat, okay? This red dot represents Jerusalem. That red dot represents Jericho, okay? And so it says that the man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, I want to do something with you geographically that's kind of important for you to know for Bible history. Is Jericho north or south of Jerusalem? This is north. That's south. So would you say that Jericho is above or below Jerusalem? This is Jerusalem. That's Jericho. Which one's on top? Jericho. But the Bible says that he was going down. How do you go from here up to there and still go down? Very important lesson for you to learn with regards to Bible geography. And that is Jerusalem is at the top of a mountainous area. And Jericho is going down into the Jordan Valley. And so back in the day, instead of speaking in north and south, east and west as much, they spoke especially in this context, they spoke about the geographical terrain. And so it would be going down into the valley when you went from Jerusalem to Jericho. Okay. Then it says that he's going to fall among robbers, and they're going to strip him and beat him, and then depart. They're going to leave him half dead. Now, by chance, a priest was going down the road, and when he saw him, he passed on this. Now, priest, that's like a modern-day preacher, you know? You'd think that the priest would stop and help, but he don't. He goes on the other side of the road. He doesn't want to get involved. Same thing happens to this Levite. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place, saw him pass by. The Levites were the ones who helped the priests. You'd sure think that, they would help, but they don't. And then it says when he came, he saw him pass on, but a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion. Big application here. This little area here, this little swath in between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan, this little area here is known as Samaria. Samaria was very important to biblical history because the Samaritans lived there. Samaria, Samaritans, you get that, right? And so they lived there, but they were not liked by the Jews because the Samaritans were kind of like half-breeds. The Samaritans had intermarried with the Gentile world, and so they weren't fully Jew as far as their genealogy was concerned, okay? And there's other reasons, but the Jews thought of them, they were like dogs. The Jews hated the Samaritans. But Jesus came for all of us, right? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Who did he love? The world, everybody. Jesus came for the world. He even came for these folks who weren't very well liked. And so this story that Jesus is telling, the hero of the story is going to be a Samaritan. You know why? Because God is trying to remind us that we need to make sure that we love all people. The villains of the story are going to be the priest and the Levite because they didn't even help. We need to be really, really careful to understand that Christianity is defined more by what you do than it is by what you say or the titles that you have or even the building that you gather around on Sunday mornings. It's about what you do. And the Samaritan did what was right. So he has compassion on it. Amazing story. He went, bound up his wounds, pouring oil and wine on them so that he can heal. Then he set him on his own animal. He brought him to an inn and he took care of him there. And the next day he took two denarii and he gave to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. 2 denarii, in my research, that's about 2 days' wages. So the man leaves behind a pretty good sum of money saying, you take care of him, please. When I come back, if I owe you some more, I'll make sure that you get paid. Wow. The Samaritan doesn't even know this guy, but he loved on him. You thought that the priest and the Levite would have, but they didn't. But the Samaritan does. And so it's what you do that God really appreciates. Take care of him, he says. And so the guy, the innkeeper does. Now, Jesus is going to ask the question, which of these 3 do you think proved to be a good neighbor? Was it the priest? No. Was it the Levite? No. Was it the Samaritan? Yes. Which of them was a good neighbor to the man who fell in the robbers? He said, the one who showed him mercy. Jesus said to him, all right, go and do the same thing. Go and do likewise. We need to be like the Good Samaritan. So if I was going to test you over what I just talked about in that very important passage, these are the 5 questions that I would put before you, and they will be put before you on the final test. And so mamas and daddies, make sure that you take note to these questions and drill them with your youngins. Oh, time for another silly. I'm going to talk about a bear. There were 2 campers, and they saw a bear that was approaching their campsite. One man immediately began putting on his tennis shoes. What in the world are you doing? Said the other guy. You can't outrun a bear. I don't have to outrun the bear, said the first man. I just have to outrun you. Why? Because if the bear catches you, he's going to eat you, and I'll have time to get away. He wasn't much of a friend, was he? It's still kind of funny. All right, segment number 4. Apply the why. Let's doodle again. Last time I forgot to do the doodle at this point. Did anybody pick up on that? Nobody? Well, we're supposed to doodle here too. All right, I'm going to take you back to one of the first doodles that we ever did. And it's going to be the guy with his nose. Anyhow, what you need to do is give me, these are going to end up being fingers, okay? Now, I know they don't really look like fingers right now, but they will. Just trust me, okay? You got your fingers? All right. Now, we're going to put a piece of paper, but his nose sticks over the paper. Down here, you got to have the bottom of the paper. Everybody got it? All right, now let's give him a head. 2 little eyeballs. Want to give him some hair? Okay. Just a little bit. And got some. And now we need some feet. All right. It's not hard to do feet. Just go like 2 teardrops or something. You see what I got there? You got the guys holding the sign, right? Now, what we need to do here is we've got to do our question mark, right? Remember I taught you how to do that? Because we're in the apply the why stage. All right, so we done did the doodle doodle. And so now what we do is we apply the why. And so let's just do it. All right, so as we talked about this lengthy paragraph, one of the things we talked about was a Samaritan. Remember, I told you that they're very, very hated people, and yet Jesus uses him as the hero of the story because he's trying to teach love, right? Well, here's my application question for you and apply the why. Do you know anybody who's disliked because of where they're from, or they came from a different place or maybe a different church? When I was very young, my parents moved from one part of the country to the deep south. Now, I'm really thankful that they're wonderful, loving people down here in the deep south, and I really was accepted quite readily. But sometimes they made fun of my accent because I came from way up north in Pennsylvania and moved all the way down here to Arkansas, and they talked different, and I talked different. And sometimes they made fun of my accent, and it wasn't really a big deal. It didn't really make me feel that bad. But, there are some people who move from other places, and they get made fun of, and it really hurts. You know what Jesus is saying in this story? He is saying we ought not tease people like that to the point that it makes them hurt or cry or feel bad. Instead, we need to be like the Good Samaritan who goes over there and he helps the fella. Doesn't even know the guy, but he helps them. So the next time you see somebody who's kind of feeling lonely and blue and doesn't have any place to fit in, you make sure that they fit in. You reach over there and pull them into your group, because that's what Jesus would do. Number 2, it says that the guy took care of him. And he said to the innkeeper, he says, whatever more you have to spend on him, when I come back, I'll pay for you. I'll make sure that gets paid for. That was really pretty generous, wasn't it? Question. Have you ever paid for somebody else when they had a bill? Maybe, the other day I got up behind a guy and the sign clearly said they could take cash only because they're having trouble with their machine. But he didn't have the exact change. And I was getting out my wallet to pay for his situation when he decided he could go a different route and he put his card in, et cetera, et cetera. But so I didn't get to do what's here. But maybe you have. You ever been in a situation where somebody needed some money, they needed help with whatever, and so you actually paid their bill for them? How did that make you feel? It just gives you such a great feeling, doesn't it? Well, that's Christianity. That's what we're supposed to do. Well, let me encourage you to start saving your money, putting it aside, so that you in those situations will have money to give away to people. It'll make you feel so good because that's what God designed us to do. And then number 3, it says, which of these do you think proves to be a neighbor, a good neighbor, Jesus asks. So my question for you is, what is the real proof of being a good neighbor? That you always keep your yard mowed and clean? No. What's the real proof of being a good neighbor? That you help, right? That you love, that you care. Oop, I gave you the answer because that's going to be on the test. So your test question is basically, be prepared to write a short explanation of what it means to be a good neighbor. You got this. I think that you can do that. All right. Which leads us to our next segment, but we got to have a silly. I've just been thinking lately as it's gotten cold here in Northeast Arkansas and, the ducks are flying south for the winter. What's that all about? Why do ducks fly south in the winter? Well, pretty obviously, it's because it's too far to walk. Can you see a duck as it waddles all the way down? No, they fly, don't they? I like that one. Why aren't you laughing harder? Blah, ha, ha. You know what I'm saying? Which leads us to our 5th and final segment. As Sonny's head comes back up onto the screen, it's time to test, and I'm convinced that you got this. That's why I say rather confidently that I believe in you. There are your questions. I think there's 10 of them. We're up to test 7. Can you believe that? We've been doing this for 7 weeks now. Anyhow, there you go. There's all your questions. So mamas and daddies, take a picture of that. Screenshot it, whatever you do, so that you got that. And that's what's going to be on the final test. So my question for you is, has this been helpful? Has it been beneficial? Have you enjoyed what we have covered this day? Well, if you have, would you pray for me? That would mean me. It would mean a lot to me. And if you're able to support our ministry, that would mean a lot too. Thank you so much. And remember, Jesus, he's our hero, right? He's our superhero. And he would want us to be like the Good Samaritan. So you look around and you see that person who's feeling a little bit awkward. They don't seem to have a place to fit. They don't have any friends. Maybe they just moved here. You reach out, draw them in, because that's what Jesus would have us to do, right? Till next time, this is Sonny Chow saying, be there. Matthew 16:26.